go.
good.
Look at that. We're all in. We're looking good.
Yeah, we're looking beautiful. Got the hats on and everything. That's how you know it's we couldn't be bothered doing our hair. It's too late in the afternoon. Chuck the hat on.
Oh, I love it, man. Yeah, that's exactly right.
How have you been, man? Like only a week. Next week, you finally kicking off the tour. Nerves setting in yet?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, a little bit. Like everyone's a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous, which is a good thing because it
Hmm.
means everybody cares, which is nice for a change. But yeah, man, it's been good. We're in the middle of like pre-prepping, doing all the production stuff, just practicing, trying to muddle through the songs as best we can, and try and fashion something that resembles being professional.
Yeah.
And I use that word very, very loosely.
Well, 20 years now, mate. The Begin Here album's now considered retro. Believe it or not, after 20 years old, it's considered retro. How's that feel?
Yeah, that feels pretty good. Actually, I'm good to be in the retro crew because in another 5 years, I believe it's classed as classic, isn't it?
Yeah,
And then won't we get played on all of the big commercial radio stations as classic rock? I
yeah.
mean, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be something if Australians supported its major radio supported its own musicians? Wow, what?
Oh,
Who would have thunk it? Stop
mate,
it!
I think
Stop
you,
it!
I think you might be asking for a bit too much there. We'll hold the horses on that one a little bit, but
Man, I actually got to speak to a music director, a managing director of a radio station once, and he just said, "You're just too metal. You're just too metal." And I didn't know whether, yeah, I sort of took it as a compliment. I was like, okay, cool, well, fair enough. And the other day I heard Metallica being played on one of them, and I was like, okay, and we were too metal.
well, therefore you're
But
more metal than Metallica now, I guess, if that's the
well,
case, isn't
oh man, well, I mean,
it?
if haircuts are anything to go by, definitely no. I should say that. I love Metallica, by the way.
But how exciting is it to actually be able to do a 20th anniversary tour? Because look, 10 years ago, this I guess wouldn't have been on anyone's minds after the split. It really did feel like that was it, and now you're back. I can't believe it's 20 years since the album came out myself. I remember buying that album at the local record store in Bathurst, of all places. And I just I got all the albums on disc. I feel like a dinosaur now. 'Cause there's nowhere to listen to them. You get a new car, can't put the CD in. But it's just kind of crazy to think that wow, that it's had its 20th birthday in like a couple of months. We'll be able to drink in the US.
That's a good point, man. You know what? None of us really thought that we would be doing a 20th anniversary. That's for sure. I remember our manager, Dave Leonard, was saying, who produced Begins Here actually and did the engineering on it, said, he said you can have a long burn of a career, or he said you can have like a flash in the pan sort of thing. And he said, kind of which one, blue pill or red pill? And we said, we'll take the long burn because we'd rather be hanging around for some time. But
Hmm.
it's funny because a lot of the bands who are around with us, and even like, Grinspoon and a lot of other bands have all become nostalgia bands,
Hmm.
basically. We're the, the old guard, but they're still selling well. And I think because the fans of that style of music and the heavier genre have a wonderful community of togetherness, and usually, you go to these shows to catch up with people you haven't seen for a long time, or
Yes.
you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
so it's a wonderful community, and I've always said it. The heavy metal, heavy rock, alt rock community is the best, and you can't beat it because they just, you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
full of the best of all the generations. You know what I mean? Because usually you gravitate towards that style of music anyway. Um, yeah, and I love it. I love being a part of that community, and I think it is a real feeling of togetherness. So when we play, you really feel that energy coming back off the crowd, and lots of bands talk about that same thing. And if someone falls down, everyone's helping them up. No one's there to hurt anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's very rarely fights, and it's usually because a couple of somebody's mates have got tickets or scammed their way in or something like that. And it's usually those guys.
I can't tell you how many times I've been knocked down in a mosh pit. And someone's always helped me, or I've even before I've hit the ground, someone's already got my wrist pulling me back up. It's just definitely one of those things. It is. I feel that kind of metal hard rock community is more of a lifestyle than it is just liking a genre of music because there's so many like that's why pop stars come and go. It's a flash in a pan. They're there to make as much money as they can, and if you last more than a decade, you're cheering at that point.
Yeah.
This is kind of a longevity thing. Even if you weren't releasing new music like you guys didn't for so long, the music's still around. People still listen to it. You gathered fans when you weren't even together that are coming to these shows now who never got the chance to see you all those years ago. Is that a little bit surreal in itself?
Yeah, 100%, man. That's amazing. Actually, there's, like I've spoken to people that are bringing their kids along, like their adult, teenage, late
Yeah.
teens, adult children, along to the shows, which is incredible, and can't thank them enough for keeping, like us alive and inviting like new listeners to come along to these shows because it really does re-energize and reinvigorate the crowd.
Yeah.
Because there's young people coming in. I mean, we're doing some all ages shows on this run, which is incredible. Probably because we got hassled by so many people saying we've got younger kids that love you guys, that have grown up on you guys, but have never got the chance to see you play. And just in case one of you gets hit by a bus, knock on wood,
Yeah.
can you please do some all age shows? Which is great that we get the chance to do it. So yeah, man, it's amazingly important. But also, I've always likened the older bands and the old guard to time machines. They're like time capsules. You
Mm.
know what I mean? When you and again, it harks back and ties back into the community sense of spirit. And when you get to hang out with people you haven't hung out with before, et cetera, you get to relive a part of your youth
Yeah.
that was very important. And of course, music is one of the greatest memory triggers that you can have in a good way. I mean, you know what I mean? And it can transport you back to like, when you met your partner, when you were hanging with the best friends, that drive you took with one of your best mates, down the coast somewhere, and you listen to Begins Here, and it just, and as soon as you hear that opening riff, you're back. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it's funny that you mentioned that as well, because I just had Crave come on a bit earlier today, and I remember seeing you guys in Bathurst years and years ago. Now I can't tell you how many years ago it was, but you guys opened with Crave as well. And the second I heard it, I pictured myself dead in that mosh pit with all my like high school mates, people I don't talk to as much anymore, just going, oh wow, that just it was literally a flood of memories that I just hadn't experienced in such a long period of time. And it is kind of weird that music does have that trigger, especially that hard rock metal music. Like you said, it is kind of that, it's a lifestyle, and these events and these live shows. Butters have always been such a fantastic live band. How do you feel about like in the rehearsals? Because you're playing the whole album, correct? Like almost every song, or every song off Begins Here.
Yeah, every song from front to back as they appeared on the album, which is
Wow.
daunting in itself because
Yeah.
we've never really played Without Wings since we recorded the album, to be honest. And I think we only played Overwhelm a handful of times. So, and I mean, AD got put on the back burner. We've just sort of dusted it off a few times. But that is quite daunting in itself.
Mm.
Also, that's a cause for a bit of nervousness in the camp. Um, I guess because like the thing is, man, I recorded Begins Here when I was like 27, I think it was. Yeah, that's about right. 27, going on 28. So I haven't. Well, man, a lot's happened. Like I've obviously taken a lot of damage to the vocal
Mm.
cords. Not as young as I was. Like even trying to like get fit for this tour, man. I've been in the pool. I was in the pool yesterday, like a twit up here because it was 39 degrees and like almost 100% on the UV index. I got a bit burnt. I got out of the pool and I felt a bit scratchy. When you put on your shirt, you're like, oh man, I'm a bit scratchy. And I got home and whipped the shirt off, and someone politely pointed out that I was as red as a lobster. So, but there you go. But even that, man, that's a bit tougher these days. Like, not having a beer, trying to eat properly, lose a couple of kilos. That's what you have to do now,
Yeah.
and to prepare for tour. And also, you've got to realize that the partying, man, that's over.
Yeah.
It's gone. The rock star stuff,
It's
it's no
fun.
more.
It's one of those things. I know the older I get, ever since I've hit past 30 as well, I just look at chips. I don't need to eat them. I just look at chips and gain 2 kilos, man. It's like, what the fuck's going on with me these days? But
You too, I
yeah,
know.
yeah. 1 second of insanity. You still got that energy from that old music video back in the day, or is it you're going to pace yourself a little bit?
Man, I've got to be honest with you. I have to pace myself these days. Oh, we talked about this in the band room the other night. Kurt and Ben both said to me, "Hey, man, maybe concentrate on delivering the show." And I was like, "Okay, is that code for please don't jump around like an idiot and blow your voice out and or run out of puff? 3 or 4 songs in." Because case in point, when we played Big Day Out 2007 main stage. We were on at like 11:45, 12 o'clock. And I remember being so amped up, and I came out so hard, and we did, I think it was like Slow Descent, maybe 1 second into, I don't know, whatever the next one was. And I remember looking at the guys going, struggling through the next, I don't know, 8, 9 songs. So that's been a point of contention in the band, is like, please just like, just pace yourself, calm, present the show, engage with people, all the rest. Because I think when we used to come out, especially when we toured Begins Here, it was about going off as hard as you could. It would be like crazy shit, climb the rafters, jump into the crowd, all that sort of stuff, which was wonderful and a ton of fun. But as as you said, as you get older and bones start to become a little less malleable and flexible, I'm starting to worry about knees and hips, and it's not that bad, man. But no, seriously though, yeah. So just pacing ourselves, presenting the show, making it really about the album and like more of a musical odyssey, rather than hanging upside down like a monkey from the lighting truss.
Well, you could do that, and the first two shows in Brisbane will be really killer. The rest of the tour, we might be a bit disappointed by the time you get to Tassie, but those first two shows would be nuts. I can't believe it. This tour is almost sold out as well. Like every location, you've had to add show after show after show. Was that a little bit unexpected for this one? Where you're like, oh crap, this is huge. You definitely weren't forgotten about all that time away.
Yeah, man, which is amazing, and it's humbling, and it certainly makes us appreciate more, where we're at, where we've come from, and certainly being still made to, or made to feel relevant, I guess, is the one thing that comes to mind a lot, because I think so many bands fade into obscurity and they're kind of never heard of again, and to have only like 3 albums out really before the we call it
Yeah.
the blip, before the blip with the holiday, is amazing, and that we still had such a following. And I think that comes down to not only some like great management, great record company that pretty much let us do whatever we wanted to do, some really good promotional help when they used to put our film clips on the start of movies you get from Blockbuster, which was
I
awesome.
remember that.
But just like really heartfelt, honest lyrics, great music that just reached and hit a certain part, in the listener. Um, like the band was electric on stage. It was raucous. It was big. It was live, and we toured our asses off. Like we didn't stop. I don't know. I think it was maybe 2003 into 2004. We played 150 something shows, which equated
Jesus.
to one show every like 2.3 days or something, which is nuts in a country this big.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's like geographically it's massive, but I'm talking about like
Yeah,
venues
we
you could
do it
play.
that way.
Yeah, yeah, venues we could play at our size. So, and I mean, we threw in a European tour. We went to America. We threw our hat in the ring, and they just didn't get us. So, and like we were playing. I remember we played at the Viper Room, and we opened up with Perception Twin, and I think you could just watch the Americans going, looking, going, "What is this?" And the Europeans, we had a record company over there and the whole bit, and they're like, "Oh, I won't do the accent." They said, "Who do we market you to, and who do we put you with?" And we said, "Deftones, Tool, Linkin Park." Like we just rattled off like 20 bands, and they're like, "We just don't hear it." And that's just weird to me, because I listen to it and I go, we would have been perfect sitting with
Yeah.
Tool, Perfect Circle, Deftones, bloody, oh man, Linkin Park, the list goes on and on and on. But no, it wasn't to be.
You can almost cater your set list up, like going back to the first three albums, because every album was different in its own way. And I can't say, hey, this Butterfly Effect album sounds like this band, but like Imago and in that I can feel like opening for Tool would make sense. Or even Begins Here, like, some of the, I don't know. So I think a lot of bands around that earlier time kind of did suffer from Australia going out to the world, because our music did sound a little bit different. You guys especially, I think Cog's another good example, Carnival, and it goes outside of here and people are like, what? That's not familiar. That's not Godsmack and stuff like that. So it's just an interesting thing. And was that a big thing? Because I've always wanted to ask you guys this, because those first three albums are so different in every way, but still sound like the Butterfly Effect. Was there always, hey, we want to kind of test the limits of what we can do as songwriters and performers, or did you just kind of your taste naturally evolved and what came out came out?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a natural evolution. That's just what kind of happened. And I think um, yeah, I wanted to write Begins Here Part Two, to be honest. And we had
Yeah.
some demos like that we had like sort of, floating around in the background, which I thought would have been amazing. And I really wanted to explore that darker space, but the guys really wanted to take a bit of a left turn for Imago and make it a bit more personal, um, and less always talk about lyrics being coded. So like a lot of the Begins Here stuff is very coded, to not only protect sort of myself but also other people that were involved in those sort of, what the lyrical content that those songs were about. So with Imago, the guy said, let's just be a little bit more upfront. Let's be a little bit more honest. I was like, okay, cool. And the music sort of changed anyway. And then when we got to Final Conversation of Kings, it was interesting. We had a bunch of songs and we sort of rushed it a bit, and we went to record a little bit too early, and we really should have, I think, sat it back for another 6 to 12 months, try to write another 2 or 3. And out of that batch, funnily enough, as soon as we got home, we wrote Visiting Hours, and there's another few songs that are sitting on a demo that I love a lot, and I really wanted to, and even after 4, I wanted to explore like the bigger songs, the more progressive songs, say like, World's on Fire.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it's a great song, and I love it. And it's funny because the guys didn't want to put that on Final Conversation of Kings. I had to, quote unquote, threaten to quit if it didn't go on. I was in the I think it was in the engineering room, and I put the foot down, the proverbial foot. The foot is coming down, and I said, no, that's going on the album. So I'm quite happy I stood my ground on that one. But
I'm glad you did too.
Yeah, man. So I want to explore more the, like the sort of 6.5, 7 minute epic, big sort of progressive stuff. Even though the choruses still return, I still wanted to explore that space, when I think that's a strength of ours, and I'd really like to sort of get back to that. Yeah,
I would love to see that again. That gives me a bit of hope, because that was going to be my next question. Do you think there'll be album number 5, or at least an EP in the future? Like, what's kind of your thoughts on that happening? Well, I said something right.
Yeah. So that's what we've been talking about, is just doing an EP. So it takes the pressure off, like, the writing unit, pretty much, because, we've all got lives and everybody's working and doing stuff outside. So it'll take the pressure off Curdy feeling like he's got to, come up with every single riff. So yeah, we talked about splitting it up. Plus we've got a whole bunch of demos in the back catalog, like floating around in the ether on hard drives somewhere, that I think would make really cool songs. And it's funny because when Reach was written, it was the middle riff of a different song, and the rest of it got sort of, we cleared the rest and just pinched that riff. Yeah, there's been heaps of songs like that. So Final Conversation was actually called a song called She Sleeps, which we put on this on the rarities and B-sides because we wanted to show people what we do. So we'll muck around with a song, and I'll it might not be going so well or going where we want it to go, and we'll pretty much dissect it and then go, if we can take this riff and put it over here, what will happen then? Yeah. And so, and to Glenn's credit, he came into the room with the riff, that opening bass line for World's on Fire, and we built the song around it. And I think what was so Room Without a View was called The Hidden when it was first written, and it was different, really different. Yeah, so all of these songs, man. So yeah, that's why it takes us so long to write, because we will literally obsess over, sections just that big.
The little details. There's nothing wrong with being a perfectionist. I guess it just get frustrating to yourself, and you're like, oh no, we're nearly there. We've just got this one thing. So I can understand. I totally get that as well, man. But I'm definitely happy that you said you're going to look at an EP, but I don't want to hold you up too long. I think you've got another interview starting very shortly. I don't want to make you late.
I do indeed.
Yeah. So I will let you go, but thank you once again. Cannot wait to see you in Sydney. It's going to be a blast, because like I said, I think last time I saw you was in Bathurst, and that was definitely on the Final Conversation of the King tour. So very excited, dude. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Is there anything you want to say before I let you go?
There's going to be after we play Begins Here in the entirety, there will be an encore set of some hits and memories, quote unquote, some favorites. So don't worry about that. And also we've got our limited edition gin out, so get around that. That's a nice drop also. And I just want to say, buddy, your decor around your studio there is exceptional. Can I just say, Iron Maiden, my favorite band of all time, closely followed by that little album down there beside the Maiden, and can I just say I love them.
Yeah, I can't believe just how crazy that went off. It was, I remember people going, listen to it. I was like, oh yeah, and I got 3 songs in. I was like, I get it. I get it. This is just
Yeah, man.
unique.
Blew my mind. When I first had Alkaline, I went and saw them at the Tivoli with North Lane, and they opened with Alkaline. It blew my mind. So
Yeah.
that's Sleep Token, very good. But yes, Up the Maidens, they're my all-time favorite.
Yeah, same here. Flew all the way to Germany to see them this year. Only for them come down later this year, I guess.
I know, but yeah, what a trip though. What a story.
Yeah. All good, mate. Thank you
Awesome,
so
brother.
much.
Well, thanks
You
so
have fun.
much, man.
Thank you, dude. You have a good one.
Thanks, brother. See you, mate.
Cheers. Bye.